A second helping of chicken soup for the soul. You are about to embark on a wonderful journey. A second helping of chicken soup for the soul is a collection of stories that will inspire and motivate you to love more unconditionally, live with more passion, and pursue your dreams with more conviction. It will become a lifetime companion, offering support and wisdom whenever you need it, and will sustain you in times of frustration and failure, while comforting you in times of pain and loss, both heartfelt and touching, and inspiring and joyful. A second helping of chicken soup for the soul is an experience like no other. A second helping of chicken soup for the soul has been created by Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. Jack Canfield is recognized as one of America's leading experts in the development of human potential and personal effectiveness. A highly sought-after trainer, he is an entertaining and dynamic speaker with the ability to inform and inspire his audiences into greater levels of self-esteem and peak performance. Mark Victor Hansen, a professional speaker for over 20 years, is a man who ignites individuals to recognize their full potential. He has been called a human activator, sharing his expertise in sales excellence and strategies, as well as personal empowerment, with over 1 million people in 32 countries. One, on love. Life is a song, sing it. Life is a game, play it. Life is a challenge, meet it. Life is a dream, realize it. Life is a sacrifice, offer it. Life is love, enjoy it. Sai Baba. The Circus by Dan Clark. That best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. William Wordsworth.
When I was a teenager, my father and I were standing in line to buy some tickets for the circus. Finally, there was only one family between us and the ticket counter. This family made a big impression on me. There were 8 children, all probably under the age of 12. You could tell they didn't have a lot of money. Their clothes were not expensive clothes. I couldn't see any little animal labels anywhere, but they were clean. The children were very well behaved, all of them standing in line, 2 by 2, behind their parents, holding hands. They were excitedly jabbering about the clowns, elephants, and other acts they would see that night. One could sense that they had never been to the circus before. It promised to be a highlight of their young lives. The father and mother were at the head of the pack, standing proud as could be. The mother was holding her husband's hand, looking at him as if to say, "You're my knight in shining armor." He was smiling and basking in pride, looking at her as if to reply, "You got that right." The ticket lady asked the father how many tickets he wanted. He proudly responded, "Please let me buy 8 children's tickets and 2 adult tickets so I can take my family to the circus." The ticket lady quoted the price. The man's wife let go of his hand. Her head dropped. The man's lip began to quiver. The father leaned a little closer and again asked, "How much did you say?" The ticket lady again quoted the price. The man didn't have enough money. How was he supposed to turn and tell his 8 kids that he didn't have enough money to take them to the circus? Seeing what was going on, my dad put his hand into his pocket, pulled out a $20 bill, and dropped it on the ground. Now, we were not wealthy in any sense of the word. My father reached down, picked up the bill, tapped the man on the shoulder, and said, "Excuse me, sir, this fell out of your pocket." The man knew what was going on. He wasn't begging for a handout, but certainly appreciated the help in a desperate, heartbreaking, and embarrassing situation. He looked straight into my dad's eyes, took my dad's hand in both of his, squeezed tightly onto the $20 bill, and with his lip quivering and a tear streaming down his cheek, he replied, thank you, sir. This really means a lot to me and my family." My father and I went back to our car and drove home. We didn't go to the circus that night, but we didn't go without.
Shoes. Author unknown.
As Gandhi stepped aboard a train one day, one of his shoes slipped off and landed on the track. He was unable to retrieve it as the train was moving. To the amazement of his companions, Gandhi calmly took off his other shoe and threw it back along the track to land close to the first. Asked by a fellow passenger why he did so, Gandhi smiled. The poor man who finds the shoe lying on the track, he replied, will now have a pair he can use.
It Takes Courage by Bill Sanders.
Her name is Nikki. She lives just down the road from me. I've been inspired by this young lady for a number of years. Her story has touched my heart, and when times get tough, I reflect upon her courage. I hope you do too. It started when she was in the 7th grade, the doctor's report. Everything that her family had feared was true. The diagnosis, leukemia. The next few months were filled with regular visits to the hospital. She was poked and jabbed and tested hundreds and thousands of times. Then came the chemotherapy. Along with it, and a chance to possibly save her life, she lost her hair. Losing your hair as a 7th grader is a very devastating thing. The hair didn't grow back. The family started to worry. That summer before the 8th grade, she bought a wig. It felt uncomfortable. It was scratchy, but she wore it. She was very popular and loved by so many students. She was a cheerleader and always had other kids around her, but things seemed to change. She looked strange, and you know how kids are. I guess maybe like the rest of us. Sometimes we go after laughter and do things even though it causes great pain to someone else. The wig was pulled off from behind about a half dozen times in the first 2 weeks of 8th grade. She would stop, bend down, shake from fear and embarrassment, put her wig back on, wipe away the tears, and walk to class, always wondering why no one stood up for her. For 2 agonizing, hellish weeks this went on. She told her parents she couldn't take it anymore. They said, "You can stay home if you wish." You see, if your daughter is dying in the 8th grade, you don't care if she makes it to the 9th. Having her happy and giving her a chance at peace is all that matters. Nikki told me that to lose your hair is nothing. She said, "I can handle that." She even said that losing your life is of little concern. "I can handle that too," she said. But do you know what it's like to lose your friends? To walk down the hall and have them part like the Red Sea because you're coming? To go into the cafeteria on pizza day, your best meal, and have them leave with half-eaten plates? They say that they're not hungry, but you know that they're leaving because you're sitting there. Do you know what it's like to have no one want to sit next to you in math class, and the kids in the locker on the left and the right to have pulled out? They're putting their books in with someone else, all because they might have to stand next to the girl wearing the wig, the one with a weird disease. It's not even catching. They can't get it from me. Don't they know I need my friends most of all? "Oh yes," she said, "losing your life is nothing when you know that because of your belief in God, you know exactly where you're going to spend eternity. Losing your hair is nothing either, but losing your friends is so devastating." She was going to stay home from school, but something happened that weekend. She heard about 2 boys, one in 6th grade and one in 7th, and their stories gave her courage to go on. The 7th grader was from Arkansas, and even though it wasn't popular, he took his New Testament Bible and his shirt to school. 3 boys came up, as the story goes, grabbed the Bible and said, "You sissy, religion is for sissies. Prayer is for sissies. Don't ever again bring that Bible back to school." He reportedly handed the Bible back to the biggest one of the 3 and said, "Here, see if you got enough courage to carry this around school just one day." They said that he made 3 friends. The next story that inspired Nikki was a 6th grader named Jimmy Masterdino from Ohio. He was jealous of California because California had a state motto, Eureka. Ohio didn't have any. He came up with 6 life-changing words. He single-handedly got enough signatures. With his petitions full, he took it before the state legislature. Today, the official state motto for Ohio, because of a brave 6th grader, is, "All things are possible with God." I honestly believe that there'd be no more suicides in this world if we all believed those 6 words. With Nikki's newfound courage and inspiration, she put her wig on that next Monday morning. She got dressed as pretty and as fancy as she could. She told her mom and dad, "I'm going back to school today. There's something I've got to do. There's something I've got to find out." They didn't know what she meant, and they were worried, fearing the worst, but they drove her to school. Each and every day for the last several weeks, Nikki would hug and kiss her mom and dad in the car before she got out. As unpopular as this was, and even though many kids sneered and jeered at her, she never let it stop her. Today was different. She also hugged and kissed them. But as she got out of the car, she turned quietly and said, "Mom and Dad, guess what I'm going to do today?" Her eyes were filling with tears, but they were tears of joy and strength. Yes, there was a fear of the unknown, but she had a cause. They said, "What, baby?" She said, "Today I'm going to find out who my best friend is. Today I'm going to find out who my real friends are." And with that, she grabbed the wig off her head and set it on the seat beside her. She said, "They take me for who I am, Daddy, or they don't take me at all. I don't have much time left. I've got to find out who they are today." She started to walk, took 2 steps, turned and said, "Pray for me." They said, "We are, baby." And as she walked towards 600 kids, she could hear her dad say, "That's my girl." A miracle happened that day. She walked through the playground, into that school, and not one loudmouth or bully, no one made fun of the little girl with all the courage. Nikki has taught thousands of people that to be yourself and use your own God-given talent and to stand up for what is right, even in the midst of uncertainty, pain, fear, and persecution, is the only way to live. Nikki has since graduated from high school. The marriage that was never supposed to take place happened a few years later, and Nikki is proud mother of a little girl that she named after my little girl, Emily. Every time something that seems impossible comes up before me, I think of Nikki and I gain strength.
Practice Random Kindness and Senseless Acts of Beauty by Adair Lara.
It's an underground slogan that's spreading across the nation. It's a crisp winter day in San Francisco. A woman in a red Honda, Christmas presents piled high in the back, drives up to the Bay Bridge toll booth. "I'm paying for myself and for the 6 cars behind me," she says with a smile, handing over 7 commuter tickets. One after another, the next 6 drivers arrive at the toll booth, dollars in hand, only to be told, "Some lady up ahead already paid your fare. Have a nice day." The woman in the Honda, it turned out, had read something on an index card taped to a friend's refrigerator. Practice random kindness and senseless acts of beauty. The phrase seemed to leap out at her, and she copied it down. Judy Foreman spotted the same phrase spray-painted on a warehouse wall 100 miles from her home. When it stayed on her mind for days, she gave up and drove all the way back to copy it down. "I thought it was incredibly beautiful," she said, explaining why she's taken to writing it at the bottom of all her letters, like a message from above. Her husband Frank liked the phrase so much that he put it up on the classroom wall of his 7th graders, one of whom was the daughter of a local columnist. The columnist put it in the paper, admitting that though she liked it, she didn't know where it came from or what it really meant. 2 days later, she heard from Ann Herbert. Tall, blonde, and 40, Herbert lives in Marin, one of the country's 10 richest counties, where she house sits, takes odd jobs, and gets by. It was in a Sausalito restaurant that Herbert jotted the phrase down on a paper placemat after turning it around in her mind for days. "That's wonderful," a man sitting nearby said, and copied it down carefully on his own placemat. "Well, here's the idea," Herbert says. "Anything you think there should be more of, do it randomly." Her own fantasies include breaking into depressing-looking schools to paint the classrooms, leaving hot meals on kitchen tables in the poor part of town, slipping money into a proud old woman's purse. Says Herbert, "Kindness can build on itself as much as violence can." Now the phrase is spreading, on bumper stickers, on walls, at the bottom of letters and business cards, and as it spreads, so does a vision of guerrilla goodness. In Portland, Oregon, a man might plunk a coin into a stranger's meter just in time. In Paterson, New Jersey, a dozen people with pails and mops and tulip bulbs might descend on a run-down house and clean it from top to bottom while the frail, elderly owners look on, dazed and smiling. In Chicago, a teenage boy may be shoveling off a driveway when the impulse strikes. "What the hell, nobody's looking," he thinks, and shovels the neighbor's driveway too. It's positive anarchy, disorder, a sweet disturbance. A woman in Boston writes "Merry Christmas" to the tellers on the back of her checks. A man in St. Louis, whose car has just been rear-ended by a young woman, waves her away, saying, "It's a scratch, don't worry." Senseless acts of beauty spread. A man plants daffodils along the roadway, his shirt billowing in the breeze from passing cars. In Seattle, a man appoints himself a one-man vigilante sanitation service and roams the concrete hills collecting litter in a supermarket cart. In Atlanta, a man scrubs graffiti from a green park bench. They say you can't smile without cheering yourself up a little. Likewise, you can't commit a random kindness without feeling as if your own troubles had been lightened if only because the world has become a slightly better place. And you can't be a recipient without feeling a shock, a pleasant jolt. If you were one of those rush hour drivers who found your bridge fare paid, who knows what you might have been inspired to do for someone else later? Wave someone on in the intersection, smile at a tired clerk, or something larger, greater. Like all revolutions, guerrilla goodness begins slowly, with a single act. Let it be yours.
It's the action, not the fruit of the action, that's important. You have to do the right thing. It may not be in your power, may not be in your time, that there will be any fruit. But that doesn't mean you stop doing the right thing. You may never know what results come from your action, but if you do nothing, there will be no result. Gandhi. The Martyrdom of Andy by Ben Burton.
Andy was a sweet, amusing little guy who everyone liked but harassed just because, well, that was the way one treated Andy Drake. He took the kidding well. Andy always smiled back with those great big eyes which seemed to say, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," with each sweeping blink. For us fifth graders, Andy was our outlet. He was our whipping boy. He even seemed grateful to pay this special price for membership in our group. Andy Drake don't eat no cake, and his sister don't eat no pie, and if it wasn't for the welfare dole, all the Drakes would die. Andy even appeared to like this sing-song parody of Jack Sprat. The rest of us really enjoyed it, bad grammar and all. I don't know why Andy had to endure this special treatment to deserve our friendship and membership in the group. It just evolved naturally. No vote, no discussion. I don't recall it was ever mentioned in this connection that Andy's father was in prison, or that his mother took in washing and men, or that Andy's ankles, elbows, and fingernails were always dirty and his old coat was way too big. We soon wore all the fun out of that. Andy never fought back. Snobbery blossoms in the very young, I guess. It's plain now that the group attitude was that it was our right to belong to the group, but that Andy was a member by our sufferance. Despite that, we all liked Andy until that day. Until that very moment. "He's different. We don't want him, do you?" Which one of us said it? I wanted to blame Randolph all these years, but I can't honestly say who spoke those trigger words that brought out the savagery lying dormant but so near the surface in all of us. It doesn't matter who. For the fervor with which we took up that cry revealed us all. I didn't want to do what we did. And for years I tried to console myself with that. Then one day I stumbled upon those unwelcome but irrefutable words that convicted me forever. The hottest corners of hell are reserved for those who, during a moment of crisis, maintain their neutrality. The weekend was to be like others the group had enjoyed together. After school on a Friday, we would all meet at the home of one of the members, mine this time, for a campout in the nearby woods. Our respective mothers, who did most of the preparation for these safaris, fixed an extra pack for Andy, who was to join us after chores. We quickly made camp, mother's apron strings soon forgotten. With individual courage amplified by the group, we were now men against the jungle. The others told me it was my party, and I should be the one to give Andy the news. I? I, who had long believed that Andy secretly thought a little more of me than the others because of the puppy-like way he looked at me. I, who often felt him revealing his love and appreciation with those huge, wide-open eyes. I can still plainly see Andy as he came toward me down the long, dark tunnel of trees, which leaked only enough of the late afternoon light to kaleidoscope changing patterns on his soiled old sweatshirt. Andy was on his rusty, one-of-a-kind bike, a girl's model, with sections of garden hose wired to the rims for tires. He appeared excited and happier than I'd ever seen him, this frail little guy who had been an adult all his life. I knew he was savoring the acceptance of the group, and the first chance to belong, to have boy fun, to do boy things. Andy waved to me as I stood in the camp clearing awaiting him. I ignored his happy greeting. He vaulted off the funny old bike and trotted over toward me, full of joy and conversation. The others, concealed within the tent, were quiet, but I felt their support. Why won't he get serious? Can't he see that I'm not returning his gaiety? Can't he see by now that his babblings aren't reaching me? Then suddenly, he did see. His innocent countenance opened even more, leaving him totally vulnerable. His whole demeanor said, "It's going to be very bad, isn't it, Ben? Well, let's have it." Undoubtedly, well practiced in facing disappointment, he didn't even brace for the blow. Andy never fought back. Incredulously, I heard myself say, "Andy, we don't want you." Hauntingly vivid is the stunning quickness with which those two huge tears sprang into Andy's eyes and just stayed there. Vivid because of a million maddening reruns of that scene in my mind. The way Andy looked at me, frozen for an eternal moment. What was it? It wasn't hate. Was it shock? Was it disbelief? Or was it pity for me? Or forgiveness? Finally, a fleet little tremor broke across Andy's lips, and he turned without appeal or even a question to make the long, lonely trip back home into the dark. As I entered the tent, someone, the last one of us to feel the full weight of the moment, started the old song. "Andy Drake don't eat no cake, his sister don't," and then it was unanimous. No vote taken, no words spoken, but we all knew. We knew we had done something horribly, cruelly wrong. We were swept over by the delayed impact of dozens of lessons and sermons we heard for the first time, "Inasmuch as ye have done this unto the least of these." In that hushed, heavy moment, we gained an understanding new to us, but indelibly fixed in our minds. We had destroyed an individual made in the image of God with the only weapon for which he had no defense, and we had no excuse: rejection. Andy's poor attendance in school made it difficult to tell when he actually withdrew, but one day it dawned on me that he was gone forever. I had spent too many days struggling within myself to find and to polish a proper way of telling Andy how consummately ashamed and sorry I was and am. I now know to have hugged Andy, and to have cried with him, and even to have joined with him in a long silence would have been enough. It would have healed us both. I never saw Andy Drake again. I have no idea where he went, or where he is, if he is. But to say I haven't seen Andy is not entirely accurate. In the decades since that autumn day in the Arkansas woods, I have encountered thousands of Andy Drakes. My conscience places Andy's mask over the face of every disadvantaged person with whom I come in contact. Each one stares back at me with the same haunting, expectant look which became fixed in my mind that day long ago. Dear Andy Drake, the chance you will ever see these words is quite remote, but I must try. It is much too late for this confession to purge my conscience of guilt. I neither expect it nor want it to. What I do pray for, my little friend of long ago, is that you might somehow learn of and be lifted by the continuing force of your sacrifice. What you suffered at my hands that day and the loving courage you showed, God has twisted and turned and molded into a blessing. This knowledge might ease the memory of that terrible day for you. I've been no saint, Andy, nor have I done all the things I could and should have done with my life. But what I want you to know is that I have never again knowingly betrayed an Andy Drake. nor, I pray, shall I ever.
The rabbis.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed those couple of short stories, very inspirational. Well, that's it for now, and this is my gift to you, a couple of stories. Everybody out there, these inspirational stories that might lift somebody up, lift you up from your heart and from your mind. Very heartwarming stories. Until then, God bless. Merry Christmas.